Welcome back. We're on Mark chapter 2. Okay. And having come back to Capernaum, I don't like this after many days, that's odd, dia plus genitive. I would have thought during the day, but go with that. All of the texts have it, so go with that. It was heard, or it was reported, that he was at home. Yeah, there's no record, incidentally, of Capernaum. It just means Kephar, gate or village, and Naum, as in the author of the book. You can translate it village of comfort. It seems to be Jesus' hometown. Anyway, certainly his base. Kai Senek Thersan, Poloi, and many were gathered together. Hoster, with the effect that Mekate Korain, there was no room, Merde Tapros Ten Thoram, and not even at the door. This is a phrase that we've seen before and we'll see again, at the door. And he was preaching the word to them. Lalo, just speak, and log on, just a word, or but sure, translate it preaching the word to them, whatever that means. This is the most Markian part of this chapter. I think of Mark as mostly a narrative source, and these rather eerie incidents, usually healings or exorcisms. And they come, doesn't say who, they come carrying to him a paralytic. Iromenon, being lifted by 4 men. So again, we got one of these key words. Remember I said agero, iro, and hystemi. They all mean lift up, or raise, or rise, and they all just be alert whenever you see that word, and especially by 4. I associate 4 with the cross and with the 4 winds and with materiality. I'll maybe explain that a little bit better. But anyway, he's being carried by 4 men. Kai merdunamonoi, and not being able, prosenenkai, that's from Pharaoh, to carry him to him, diatoloklon, because of the crowd. Apestagasan ten stegen, they unroofed the roof where Jesus was. Yeah. So they removed, or they took off some of the roof. They unroofed the roof over where he was. Kai exoroxantes, orosu dig. Yeah. And having dug out, presumably dug out a hole, Kalosi, they lower down ton krabaton, the bed where the paralytic was lying. So we've got 4 men carrying a bed. This bed often, for me, represents the body, or material body. That could just be me. 4 men, and they dig a hole in the roof and lower something down. Something which is damaged or broken, in need of healing. Right. And Jesus, seeing their faith, he says to the paralytic, "Child, your sins are forgiven." Afiemi, this word we see quite rather a lot. Okay, definitely the redactor of Mark, it's all about faith, in the sense that Pauline Christianity is all about faith. I suspect there's a stage of Mark before that was the crucial thing, and it's rather Pauline, a rather unusual way. But yeah, okay. So the main thing we're taking away from this story is that the four men or the five men are showing faith. Okay. And now we've got the middle of a Markian sandwich, as Fishers of Evidence and I imagine many other people call them, where you start at Act 1 of a story and then you take a break in the middle where something is, either something else happens or something's discussed. And often the middle part gives you some kind of pointer to meaning. Okay, and there were some of the scribes sitting there, and dialogis dominoi, questioning or disputing in their hearts. And this is often used word for disputing, for two people disputing, but it can be internal as well, questioning in their hearts. Why does this man speak thus? He blasphemes. Who can forgive sins except God alone? Except God alone. Heis or theos. Okay, because God said your sins are forgiven. Jesus said your sins are forgiven. Mark in tag, kaiuthus, and immediately, epignos hoiesus, Jesus having perceived in his spirit that they were disputing amongst themselves or inside themselves, he says to them, why are you disputing these things in your hearts? What is easier, to say to the paralytic, your sins are forgiven, or to say, egeire, kai aron ton krabaton su, kai peripate, arise and lift up your bed and walk around. Often means just live, yeah. But again, we've got these verbs that we often see, ageiro, iro, and hystermi, to do with lift up or rise. Absolutely central to these Christian texts. And we've got two of them out of three here. Yes, rise and lift up your bed and walk. Yes, I often think of these scenes which are set in the real world as being eschatological, and I think of raising the dead being raised with their bodies, literally having been, we all die sick by definition. We pick up our bodies, yeah, at the resurrection. Yes, arise, pick up your bed and walk. And remember that this bed was being held by four men. So I assume it's not just straw. It's not just a bag of straw, as grabatum, the Latin, would suggest. But there's some kind of frame. If we think of a sick man being carried on a stretcher, perhaps that gives us the idea. A frame carried by four men. Again, materiality. But in order that you might know that the Son of Man, I think the first use here, has authority on earth to forgive sins, he says to the paralytic, I say to you, rise, pick up your bed and go to your home. Go to your home. I don't want to make too much of that. But yeah, go back to your proper place. And he was raised, and immediately, having picked up Iro, his bed, he went out in front of all of them, so that they were all astonished anhystermi, exhystermi, to be out of your wits with amazement. Another amazement word. All of Mark's scenes, if you were painting them, would be surrounded by people looking aghast, astonished. Okay, so they were all amazed and glorified God, saying that never have we seen like this. Yeah, we never saw anything thus. And I think I'll stop it there. I mean, for me, this paralytic's the most interesting part of this chapter. Just bear in mind the connection with Mark 1. Remember Jesus coming out of the water and the heavens being ruptured, schizomenus, and then something descending. This is what we call structuralist criticism. It's worth bearing in mind. Okay, I'm going to stop there for a second.